The Galactic Council prided itself on creating the most advanced space station in the known universe. It was engineered to be flawless, with protocols and technology that left no room for error, or so they thought. But today, something unprecedented was happening. An anomaly in the station's core had triggered an escalating series of failures, leaving the Council in a frenzy. Despite their advanced systems, nothing was working. Alien engineers scrambled to follow emergency procedures, barking out calculations and theories, each more complex than the last. But no matter what they tried, the problem worsened, and the core began to overheat. In a last-ditch effort, the Council made a desperate call for help. Little did they know, the team that would respond wasn't a high-tech squad of galactic troubleshooters. It was a group of humans, just humans. And when they arrived, they didn't bring high-end technology. Instead, they walked in with a single toolbox, a roll of duct tape, and a steaming thermos of coffee. The Council members exchanged bewildered glances. What could these fragile, primitive beings possibly offer? As the human leader took a sip of coffee and surveyed the blinking consoles and panicked engineers, he smirked and muttered, "All right, let's see what's broken this time." In the bustling corridors of the Galactic Council's space station, alien technicians hurried to and fro, exchanging worried glances as they prepared for the human arrival. The Council members, a group of elite beings from various advanced civilizations, had gathered in the control room. They were, admittedly, at their wits' end. Despite the technology at their disposal, they couldn't prevent the core from destabilizing. It was as if the station itself had betrayed them. The alien engineers whispered among themselves, puzzled by the Council's decision to call in humans. In their minds, humans were primitive, short-lived, prone to emotional outbursts, and reliant on bizarre substances like coffee just to stay awake. How could these beings, who were barely out of their home planet's atmosphere, hope to assist on an advanced intergalactic space station? The Council leader, a tall, luminous being whose body shimmered like liquid metal, tried to reassure the team, though his voice carried an undertone of doubt. "The humans have a certain reputation for improvisation," he said. Perhaps that will be useful." "But improvisation?" murmured a nearby engineer, her voice a mix of horror and disbelief. "This is a delicate operation. The core is at risk of meltdown." A scientist chimed in, wringing his multiple hands in distress. "And what is this thing they drink? Coffee? I hear it makes them erratic and overconfident. How can that help here?" Another engineer, clutching a manual of regulations, added with a worried shake of his head, "Humans are unpredictable. They rarely follow protocol." As the doors hissed open and the human team stepped in, carrying their modest tools, the Council's elite scientists collectively held their breath. Each alien regarded the humans as if they were rare specimens, studying their every move. The humans, however, looked entirely unfazed. They scanned the room, noticing the rows of blinking lights and the tense faces staring at them, and one of them cracked a casual smile. "Wow," the human leader remarked, eyeing the high-tech surroundings with a hint of amusement. "Fancy setup you've got here. So, which one of these gadgets do you guys think is about to blow?" One alien engineer blinked in confusion. "Blow? That's not the term we would use." "Well," the human shrugged, "first lesson in space survival. If it's not supposed to smoke, it's probably about to blow. And judging by all these blinking lights, you guys have got some real hot spots." As the Council members exchanged uneasy glances, the humans laid down their toolbox, revealing an array of items that seemed primitive. The aliens spotted wrenches, rolls of duct tape, and a rubber mallet. The Council leader cleared his throat, trying to maintain decorum. "Are you sure these tools are sufficient for the task?" "Trust me," the human leader replied, tapping the roll of duct tape with a grin. "When the going gets tough, this stuff fixes almost anything. Well, that and a little bit of luck. And coffee." The aliens continued to stare, their minds racing with questions they dared not voice. As they watched, some of them took notes, bewildered at the thought that these humans actually believed in their bizarre approach. It was clear they had no idea what to expect next. As the human team set up their tools, the Council members couldn't take their eyes off them. The aliens had seen countless repairs before, each executed with precise calculations and delicate instruments. But these humans? They were treating this high-stakes operation like a weekend home project. The lead human, a laid-back engineer named Jake, poured himself a cup of coffee from his thermos and took a long, satisfied sip, completely ignoring the tension in the room. The aliens watched in shock. Did this creature not realize the gravity of the situation? One alien technician, fidgeting nervously, couldn't contain himself any longer. "Human," he said, voice quivering, "aren't you concerned? The core could destabilize at any moment." Jake raised an eyebrow, looking over the rim of his coffee cup. "Concerned? Sure. But panicking won't fix anything, will it?" He set his coffee down, pulled out a wrench, and began inspecting the core's casing. "Relax. We've handled worse situations than this back on Earth. Ever heard of the duct tape fix?" The council members glanced at each other, utterly perplexed. One of the younger engineers whispered, "Duct tape? Is that some kind of high-tensile material?" Another alien leaned in, genuinely baffled. "Or perhaps it's a type of polymer sealant with regenerative properties." The humans exchanged a look, barely holding back their amusement. Jake tore off a strip of duct tape and held it up. "Nah, it's just tape, strong tape. Works wonders when things start falling apart." The aliens gawked as Jake applied the tape over a small leak on one of the pipes connected to the core. He patted it with a confident nod, and for good measure, gave it a gentle whack with the rubber mallet. The station's alarm softened slightly, but the aliens only grew more horrified. A council scientist shook his head in disbelief. This is madness. You can't possibly think that tape will stabilize a galactic-class core?" Jake gave a casual shrug. "When you're out of options, sometimes simple is best. And besides, this isn't just any tape." He tapped the duct tape with a smirk. "This stuff has saved more lives than you can count. It's practically sacred on Earth." The alien council members took frantic notes, the logic behind the humans' confidence completely eluding them. How could something so ordinary hold any value in a crisis like this? And yet, it seemed to be working. The alarms were still flashing, but at least some of the pressure gauges were stabilizing. Another alien technician, desperate to understand, finally spoke up. "But what about your tools? Are these relics? Have they been tested to withstand cosmic radiation?" Jake chuckled, pulling a screwdriver from the toolbox. "Buddy, we've got stuff here that could survive a weekend in the trunk of a pickup truck. You'd be surprised at what we can make do with. The trick isn't about having fancy tools. It's about knowing what you can fix and how to keep going when everything's falling apart." The aliens were silent, their eyes wide with a mixture of awe and confusion. No one had ever considered a philosophy like this: improvisation, making do. Their entire society revolved around meticulous planning and perfect execution. These humans seemed to live by a completely different code. One alien, staring at Jake with newfound curiosity, whispered, They don't follow our logic, do they?" "No," another replied slowly, "and that's what makes them so unpredictable." A small spark of hope ignited among the council members as they continued to observe the humans' work, occasionally exchanging baffled glances. Perhaps there was something to this strange, unpredictable species after all, and as Jake gave the station console a reassuring pat, the council began to understand that the humans weren't just fixing their station. They were challenging everything they thought they knew. Just as the council members began to adjust to the humans' peculiar methods, a new alarm blared, louder and more insistent than the last. A red light flashed on the console, and the readings from the core indicated rapid fluctuations. The crisis was far from over. Jake sighed, glancing at his team with a resigned smile. "Looks like we've got a bit of a situation, folks, again." One of the alien technicians, on the brink of panic, pointed at the screen. "The core temperature is rising again, and now there's an electromagnetic surge in the containment field. This is catastrophic." The humans exchanged a look, then shrugged as if they were dealing with a leaky faucet instead of a nuclear-level meltdown. Jake grabbed an old, slightly dented handheld scanner from his toolbox, which looked like it hadn't seen an upgrade in decades. One alien, horrified, muttered, That scanner looks ancient. Is it even compatible with our systems? Jake grinned, powering it up. Well, if it isn't, we'll make it compatible. Good tech doesn't have an expiration date. He held up the scanner, giving it a few taps on the side to get it going, then waved it around the console. There, now we just need a workaround. The aliens looked on, appalled and mystified. Their protocol manual had hundreds of pages on addressing core malfunctions, yet these humans were winging it. No plan, no calculations, just pure intuition and adaptability. One of the engineers leaned over and whispered to his colleague, Are they just making this up as they go? The human team continued their work, unfazed by the alarm bells and flashing lights. One of Jake's crew members pulled out a roll of rubber tubing, preparing to redirect some of the core's coolant. Another opened a small kit labeled Emergency Snacks and tossed a granola bar to Jake, who caught it with a grin. At this, a young alien officer gasped in disbelief. Are they eating during a critical operation? Jake unwrapped the granola bar and took a bite, shrugging. Gotta keep your strength up. Crisis or not, we're not going to do anyone any good if we're hangry. He waved the half-eaten bar towards the aliens. You guys want some? The aliens just stared, utterly speechless. A new wave of alarms suddenly blared, this time indicating a drop in the containment field's structural integrity. One of the alien technicians began frantically flipping through a thick emergency manual, mumbling about protocols and backup plans. But Jake walked over, scanned the warning lights, and placed a sturdy metal clamp on a key support beam. One alien, incredulous, sputtered, You can't just clamp it. There are layers of quantum fields and structural alignments. Jake gave him a reassuring pat on the back. Sometimes all those fancy systems just need a little reinforcement. Besides, we've got backup plans. He pointed to his toolbox. Plenty more where that came from. As Jake's team continued to work, the council members exchanged wary glances. But they couldn't deny what they were seeing. Each time a new issue cropped up, the humans met it with swift, improvised solutions, without consulting a single protocol or running complex simulations. They just kept going, adjusting on the fly, solving one problem after another with materials that seemed ridiculously inadequate for the task. One alien scientist, almost in awe, asked, How do you keep doing this? You humans act like nothing is too big to handle. Jake laughed. Oh, trust me, we've faced plenty that felt too big. But that's the thing about humans. We just keep going, even when it doesn't make sense. We don't quit. We might not have the fanciest tools, but we know how to make do. And sometimes, that's enough. The aliens were silent, taking in his words. For a species that believed in perfect planning, the humans' adaptability and sheer determination were baffling. It was almost as if their lack of fear for chaos gave them strength. One alien, still clutching the protocol manual, muttered under his breath, This goes against everything we've been trained to believe. Jake clapped him on the shoulder with a grin. Welcome to human problem-solving, my friend. The council members, though still skeptical, found themselves silently rooting for the humans, intrigued by their strange, unorthodox methods. They watched as the humans patched together the containment system with parts that seemed laughably primitive, but somehow worked. As the last alarm finally quieted, the aliens breathed a collective sigh of relief, watching in astonishment as the humans continued to tweak and stabilize the core without missing a beat. They couldn't help but wonder, was there something they could learn from these unpredictable beings? The alarms had finally gone silent, and for the first time in hours, the space station's core readings were stable. The council members stared in disbelief at the monitors. Against all logic, the humans had stabilized the core, with tape, clamps, and quick fixes that defied everything they thought they knew about engineering. A senior council member, known for his unshakable logic, gazed at Jake with wide, astonished eyes. Human, he began slowly, as if the words were foreign in his mouth. We have spent generations perfecting protocols, developing precise solutions to avoid improvisation. And yet, you've done the impossible without following a single guideline. Jake finished securing the final clamp and glanced back at the council member. Yeah, I guess we're not big on guidelines. They're great for normal stuff, but when things get wild, you have to get creative. That's just how we roll. Another alien scientist, whose mind was racing with newfound questions, stepped forward. But why? How can you just ignore protocols? How do you trust that things will work out? Jake paused, considering his answer. Well, it's not really about trusting that it'll work out. It's about knowing we'll figure it out. Humans, we've had to deal with a lot of chaos. We don't always know what's coming, but we've learned how to adapt. Sometimes, all you can do is dive in, get your hands dirty, and hope for the best. The council members exchanged glances, murmuring in low voices. Adapting to chaos, hoping for the best. These were not the foundations of galactic protocol. They were concepts that the council had long dismissed as reckless, even dangerous. And yet, it had worked. The humans had shown them that there was a way to handle crises that didn't involve endless calculations and contingencies. One younger council member, who had been watching the humans with a growing sense of admiration, whispered to her colleague, "What if we've been wrong? What if all our planning and protocols can't solve every problem?" Her colleague, equally bewildered, replied, "It's unthinkable. Yet here we are." The council leader, who had been silent until now, finally spoke, his voice full of contemplation. "Perhaps we have overlooked something fundamental. Perhaps in our pursuit of perfection we lost sight of resilience." He looked directly at Jake. "Humans, you are willing to face failure, aren't you? You don't need certainty. You act even without guarantees." Jake gave a nod. "Yeah, and sometimes we fail, but when we do, we get back up and try again. Failure doesn't stop us. It just makes us more determined to get it right next time." The aliens absorbed his words, their expressions shifting from disbelief to introspection. For beings raised in a culture where failure was feared and avoided at all costs, this concept was revolutionary. The idea that one could learn, even grow from failure, felt as alien to them as the humans themselves. One council scientist, who had always clung to rigid procedures, sighed, looking down at his protocol manual. "So humans, you succeed because you are willing to fail?" Jake chuckled. "More or less. It's not that we want to fail, but we know it's part of the process, and hey, sometimes we stumble into the right answer while we're at it." He gestured to his team, who were busy packing up their toolbox with an air of satisfaction. "As long as we keep trying, we figure things out." The council members fell into a thoughtful silence, each reflecting on what they had witnessed. For the first time, they began to question their own ways. Was it possible that humans, with their flawed and chaotic methods, held a wisdom they had overlooked? Could embracing a bit of unpredictability, a bit of humanity, actually make them stronger? As the humans wrapped up their work, one of the younger aliens finally found the courage to speak. "Human, I think I understand now. You don't need perfection to find solutions. You just need persistence?" Jake smiled. "Exactly, and a little bit of coffee doesn't hurt either." The aliens chuckled, their laughter a mix of relief and newfound admiration. The tension that had filled the room earlier had dissipated, replaced by something else, a profound respect for these unpredictable beings. As the humans prepared to leave, the council leader called after them, a hint of awe in his voice. "Jake, you have shown us a path we never considered. From this day forward, the council may need to rethink our approach. Perhaps there is value in embracing a bit of the unknown." Jake gave a playful salute. "Well, if you ever need us again, just call, and maybe stock up on duct tape and coffee." The council watched as the humans walked away, leaving them with a new perspective, one that would change their protocols, and perhaps even their way of life, forever. Just as Jake and his team began packing up, a sudden ominous hum filled the station. Lights flickered, and the council's central screen blared with new warnings. A previously undetected anomaly in the core's power grid was now destabilizing, creating a volatile feedback loop. If not corrected immediately, it could trigger a catastrophic explosion that would destroy the station and everyone on it. The council leader's calm demeanor faltered as he addressed the humans. We've never faced an anomaly of this magnitude. Our protocols, they don't account for this." Jake and his team exchanged a glance. This wasn't just another malfunction. It was a full-blown emergency. Without missing a beat, Jake took a deep breath and turned to the council leader. All right, here's what we're going to do. You've got high-tech systems, and we've got hands-on know-how. Together, we're going to shut this thing down. He pointed to the console. Start by showing me the layout of your power grid. The council leader hesitated, then nodded, pulling up the holographic blueprint. The aliens watched as Jake scanned the layout, his mind working quickly. He pointed to a series of conduits connecting to the core. These lines, if we can reroute power here and here, we can diffuse the charge building up in the core. But we're going to need a lot of hands. The alien engineer stepped forward, nervous but resolute. For the first time, they were taking orders not from a protocol manual, but from a human. Jake handed each of them a task, using both technical jargon and simple instructions. The aliens, though unfamiliar with this approach, followed his lead, scrambling to reroute energy flows, divert coolant, and stabilize connections. Meanwhile, one of Jake's team members grabbed the duct tape and a roll of high-strength wiring. All right, listen up, she said to a nearby alien technician. We're going to reinforce the containment field with this wiring. Think of it like a flexible shield. It won't stop everything, but it'll buy us time. The technician, though confused, nodded, watching as she skillfully applied the wiring to the containment shield. This is improvisation at its finest, he muttered to himself, marveling at her skill. Another alien, working with Jake, noticed a strange energy pattern forming near one of the conduits. He raised an alarm, his voice quivering. There! The feedback loop is accelerating. It's about to cascade through the entire power grid. Jake didn't flinch. All right, new plan. We're going to isolate that section. Cut it off from the rest of the grid before it can spread. The council leader looked horrified. But that section powers life support systems in this sector. Jake gave him a firm look. We don't have a choice. We can bring life support back online once the crisis is over. For now, cutting off the power flow is the only way to keep this station from going up in smoke. With a quick nod, the council leader reluctantly approved the action. The human team, now working seamlessly alongside the aliens, isolated the unstable section. In the control room, the tension was palpable. Alarms were blaring, steam hissed from pressurized pipes, and the air grew thick with anticipation. Just as they completed the isolation, the station shuddered violently, throwing everyone off balance. But Jake held steady, his mind racing as he reviewed their progress. They were close, but they still had one final connection to secure. He turned to one of the aliens, who was staring at him with wide eyes, clutching a control panel for support. Do you trust me? Jake asked. The alien hesitated, then gave a determined nod. Yes, I do. Good, Jake said with a grin, because we're about to do something risky. I need you to divert every bit of backup power we have to the main coolant line. It's going to get messy, but it'll hold the core long enough for us to stabilize the feedback loop. The alien hesitated, then began rerouting the power, his hands trembling. The room was filled with the hum of energy as they executed the risky maneuver. Jake's team moved with quick precision, coordinating with the aliens in real time, each step bringing them closer to containing the crisis. Finally, with the last adjustments in place, Jake yelled, All right now, lock it down. The alien technicians activated the final sequence, channeling the diverted power through the core's containment system. There was a tense pause as the station groaned under the strain. Then slowly, the readings began to stabilize. The feedback loop dissipated, and the core's temperature dropped to safe levels. A stunned silence filled the room. Against all odds, they had done it. The council leader, looking both relieved and deeply moved, turned to Jake and his team. You have saved us all. This was beyond anything we could have prepared for, and yet you trusted in the unpredictable. Jake chuckled, brushing some dust off his jacket. Well, sometimes that's what it takes. You can't always plan for every little thing. Sometimes you just have to take a leap and hope you land on your feet. The council leader and his fellow aliens exchanged looks, their expressions filled with newfound respect. They had just witnessed humans do the unthinkable, not with meticulous planning, but with courage, quick thinking, and a willingness to take risks. One of the alien engineers, visibly humbled, muttered, Perhaps there is wisdom in your chaos. Jake nodded. We're not perfect, and we don't always get it right, but we do what we can with what we've got. And sometimes, that's all it takes. The council members watched as the human team began packing up their tools, their demeanor as casual as if they had just fixed a leaky pipe. It was clear. These humans had shown them a new way to see the universe, and perhaps a new way to approach the unknown. As the dust settled and the alarms finally silenced, the alien council members took a moment to absorb what had just happened. They had faced a crisis that should have been beyond their control, an unthinkable situation where protocols and technology had failed. And yet these humans had not only stabilized their core, but had done so with nothing more than duct tape, quick thinking, and pure grit. One by one, the council members approached Jake and his team, each alien wearing an expression of deep respect, some even of awe. The council leader, visibly humbled, extended a hand, a gesture he had learned from observing humans. "Jake," he said, his voice filled with sincerity, "on behalf of the Galactic Council, I extend our deepest gratitude. You and your team have taught us something that goes beyond technology. You have shown us the strength in resilience, in adaptability, in simply trying, even when the outcome is uncertain." Jake clasped the council leader's hand with a grin. "Glad we could help, and hey, I've got to say, you all did pretty well under pressure yourselves." A younger alien scientist stepped forward, clearly still in awe. "Your methods, they defy logic, yet they work. I never would have thought to seal a containment field with wiring and clamps." He hesitated, then added, "Perhaps in the future we could learn more from you." Jake chuckled, handing the young scientist a piece of duct tape. "First lesson, don't underestimate the power of good old duct tape." The scientist accepted the tape reverently, as if it were a sacred artifact. He turned it over in his hands, marveling at its simplicity, and then looked back at Jake with a nod. "Thank you, I will. Keep this as a reminder." Another council member, still processing the experience, spoke up. "Perhaps it is time for us to update our protocols, to allow for flexibility. It seems we may have much to learn from your improvisation." Jake raised his coffee cup in a mock toast. "Here's to new protocols, and maybe a little less rigidity." The council leader allowed himself a rare smile. "Indeed, from now on, perhaps we will approach the unknown with a little less fear and a little more humanity." Jake and his team exchanged satisfied glances as they packed up, knowing they'd left a mark on the council, one that would likely change how these advanced civilizations approached crises forever. As they made their way to the exit, the council leader called out one last time, "Jake, if we ever face another crisis like this, would you and your team consider returning?" Jake laughed, giving a playful salute. "Anytime. Just make sure there's plenty of coffee and duct tape waiting for us." The council members chuckled, some nodding in agreement, others still too stunned to respond. For the first time, they realized they had allies in these humans, unpredictable, yes, but full of a resilience and creativity they couldn't help but admire. As the humans departed, a quiet sense of hope filled the room. The council members had glimpsed a new way forward, a way that embraced both caution and courage, both protocol and possibility. And for the first time, they felt ready to face the unknown, knowing they had the spirit of humanity on their side. Months passed after that fateful day on the Galactic Council space station. News of the humans' unexpected success spread through the intergalactic community like wildfire. Rumors flew from one sector to another, tales of the strange creatures who defied logic, ignored protocol, and somehow saved the day with nothing but tape, clamps, and coffee. Back on the council's headquarters, new directives were quietly being written. For the first time in their history, the council was adding a new section to their emergency protocols, one inspired by humans. Dubbed the Human Clause, it encouraged adaptability and creative problem-solving in situations where conventional protocols fell short. And then there was the supply room. Rows of shelves now held boxes marked emergency tape supplies and crates of coffee, carefully labeled for human teams only. A small but growing portion of the council's budget had even been set aside to ensure a steady supply of these essential items in every major council facility. In the council leaders' chambers, A large glossy roll of duct tape sat prominently on his desk, a gift from Jake, sent with a cheeky note, "For next time, remember, we're just a call away." The council leader couldn't help but smile every time he looked at it. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, humans were getting more calls than ever from the Galactic Council. Minor malfunctions, unusual anomalies, unexplained phenomena. Whenever the council encountered something they couldn't solve, they knew just who to contact. Humans, it seemed, had become the go-to team for all things chaotic and unexpected. Back on Earth, Jake and his team took each new mission with the same laid-back attitude, never quite surprised by the aliens' curiosity and awe. "Guess they still haven't figured out that sometimes you just need to wing it," Jake would say with a laugh. And, as always, they made sure to pack plenty of duct tape and coffee before setting off on their next adventure. And so, a new chapter began in the galaxy's history, one where humans and aliens worked side by side, each learning from the other. And while the Council still preferred their meticulous protocols, there was always a quiet sense of comfort knowing that, somewhere out there, the humans stood ready with a roll of tape and a cup of coffee, just in case. After all, as the Council had learned, you could never be too prepared for the unexpected.